Human sacrifice, voluntary castration, crime, corruption, and complete and utter horror. These are some of the dark rituals performed by forgotten cults across history.
How's this for a dark ritual? Cutting off your own reproductive organs to appease your favorite god. Sounds pretty extreme. Worshippers of Cybele, the god of motherhood, nature, fertility, and agriculture, took their faith to the extreme. Forget human sacrifice, that's so passé. Gotta sacrifice your own ability to create human life. Painfully. That's how you really impress the gods. Cybele was originally worshipped in the kingdom and Phrygia, but eventually the Greeks and Romans adapted her into their own beliefs, and the Cybele cult spread. March 24th was a very special holiday for the followers. It was known as the Day of BLOOD, which involved a lot more than the name suggests, because this was the day that priests would castrate themselves, offering up their round little sacrifices to Cybele's altars in a joyous celebration of the mother of all gods. Eventually, bulls would be sacrificed rather than bullocks. The ancient Romans, they really weren't big fans of castration and thought the cult was kinda nuts. So they were like, if you want to keep doing your thing, you can't cut off your things, you're gonna have to settle for animal sacrifices instead.
The Anthill cult is another lesser-known cult with some less than savory practices and rituals. The organization was founded in 1977 in Canada by its leader Roch Thériault, a self-proclaimed prophet. It was a doomsday cult with beliefs based in, but rituals incredibly removed from Christianity. The founder was known for having multiple wives and even more offspring. In total, Roch fathered 26 individuals. He was a terrible man who subjected his followers to routine physical and psychological torment. The term anthill comes from Roch's view on his followers, who were forced to build the cult's town while he relaxed, during which time he compared them to ants working in an anthill. By the 1980s, the cult had almost 40 members, forced to wear identical tunics to represent both their dedication to the cult and equality among members. In 1984, the group moved to Quebec, during which time Roch's grasp around the lives of the members tightened as his torments grew. He became a self-proclaimed surgeon, removing limbs, teeth, fingers, and toes from his followers in what he described as a ritualistic sacrificial practice. He also ordered many of his followers to break their own limbs, injure one another, and ingest human excrement, insect, and rats. In 1989, Roch was arrested after one of his former members, Eleazar, fled the commune and contacted authorities. It was her second attempt at escape. She had tried once before, but it ended far too horribly to get into on this platform. Roch was sentenced to 12 years in prison for his torment of Eleazar and the killing of another former member. In 2002, he applied and was rejected for parole, as he was considered high risk to reoffend. I love it when they keep the bad guys in jail.
Around 7,000 years ago, a large meteorite broke up as it plummeted towards the Earth, crashing into Estonia. This created 9 craters, which became known as the Kaali craters. The main crater, which is often what people are talking about when they say the Kaali crater, is almost perfectly circular, and at one point there was a wall built around it, which led many archaeologists to believe that the people at the time incorporated it into rituals of some kind, which involved human sacrifice. Human bones were recovered from under the water. So this wall around it was around 1,540 feet long and just over 6.5 feet in height. We don't know exactly what the people would have believed about the crater, but I'm sure watching a giant boulder crash into the ground 7,000 years ago must have seemed like a sign from a higher power. So maybe in order to avoid more giant rocks from the sky raining down on their heads in the future, they decided to offer up sacrifices in order to appease whatever deity they thought was responsible.
The Church of Yahweh has been referred to as a cult by many of its former members, although naturally the organization claims otherwise. The Church of Yahweh was founded by Michael Wayne Ryan, who also led the Christian identity cult. Some of Ryan's main teachings were sick combinations of racist ideologies, homophobia, and anti-traitor propaganda, with the group's core message being that they had been chosen by God and that anyone who identified outside of their race, class, and creed were children of Satan, in accordance with the serpent seed theory, which is a fringe belief that the fall of man came about because Eve mated with the serpent in the Garden of Eden. It's super convoluted. During his time as a cult leader, Ryan convinced his followers to steal, lie, and just generally hate everyone that wasn't them. And by the time police infiltrated the organization, the Church of Yahweh had collected an entire stockpile of weapons that they had planned on using for the imminent Battle of Armageddon. The cult finally fell apart after word got out that not only was Ryan brainwashing his disciples, in some cases he was killing them too, ritualistically tormenting them for several days, firing off their fingertips, breaking their legs, and even removing the skin from their bodies before finally putting them out of their misery. Ryan was arrested in 1985, and in 2015 he died while on death row at the age of 67.
In ancient Greece, around 2,000 years ago, people were facing all sorts of health issues. Modern medicine as we know it was still centuries away, so they turned to their gods for help. Mainly Asclepius, the god of healing and medicine. It was believed that Asclepius had the power to cure illness and even bring people back from the dead. To worship Asclepius, people would visit special healing temples called Asclepia, which were scattered throughout Greece. These were almost like ancient hospitals, but combined into religious temples, a blend of a spiritual retreat and a medical facility. At these sanctuaries, the main ritual was something called incubation. You'd make a pilgrimage to one of these temples, hoping for a miraculous cure. Once you arrived, you'd spend the night in a secret dormitory or sleeping area, often on a special bed or mat. The hope was that during the night, Asclepius would visit you in your dreams and offer guidance or a cure for your illness. If you had a dream of Asclepius or saw a vision related to healing of some sort, the priests would analyze the dream, and then based on that, they'd suggest a treatment or ritual to follow. Unfortunately, I don't think this would have worked very well.
The Superior Universal Alignment cult was founded by Valentina de Andrade in the late 1900s. Among the members of the cult were Valentina de Andrade herself, 2 doctors, 2 former police officers, and the son of a very powerful businessman. The cult's main goal: mutilation and ritualistic killing. You see, the members of the Superior Universal Alignment cult, for whatever reason, believe that men born after 1981 were possessed by the devil. Why did they think this? I have literally no idea, but what I do know is that the organization routinely and ritualistically took young men against their will and removed their eyes and reproductive organs before ending their lives in the name of the Lord. In total, the organization caused the deaths of at least 6 young men and severely injured at least 3 more. While many members of the organization were initially arrested in the 1990s, on September 12th of 1995, they were all set free. No justice in the judicial system, I guess.
The Unification Church, a religious movement which combines elements of Christianity, shamanism, Confucianism, all with a strong anti-communist stance. The group was founded by Sun Myung Moon in South Korea during the 60s. They are often referred to as the Moonies, and their rituals involve really creepy mass wedding ceremonies. Sun Myung Moon claimed he was chosen by Jesus to complete a divine mission here on Earth. According to Moon, Jesus had started a sacred task, but it was left unfinished, so Moon believed it was his job to wrap things up. And he had a rather unusual plan to do so by creating pure families through mass weddings. Moon started organizing these massive wedding ceremonies where complete strangers would marry each other. He actually set a Guinness World Record by marrying 6,500 strangers in one single event. After getting married, these new couples were then expected to sell their stuff and hand over all the proceeds to Moon. You know, just to make sure everyone was devoted to the church and his mission and not worldly possessions.
While I do not know the name of this next cult, it was brought to the attention of the masses by someone who most of you should know the name of, Angelina Jolie. While Jolie never outright said the name of the cult, she was captured on film speaking about it with a group of friends back in 1999. She described it as a Hollywood cult for celebrities, with the main aspect of the organization being the initiation ritual that seemed to draw inspiration from sadism and masochism practices. Jolie told of how new members of the cult were tied up, tormented, and violated against their will. Angelina Jolie recounted her time partaking in the ritual, saying that after it was completed, she was also forced to kill a snake. There really isn't much else out there about the cult, no information on other members, or whether or not the cult really does exist, but it's Hollywood, so, you know, it probably does.
The Order of the Nine Angels, or ONA for short. For some background, the Order of the Nine Angels was established in the United Kingdom back in the 60s, but only came to public attention in the 80s. They started getting a lot of negative attention for their racist ideologies. The cult describes its approach as traditional Satanism, but it also pulls inspiration from ancient Greek and Egyptian mythology and certain elements of modern paganism. But none of those practices they've taken inspiration from are even half as gruesome as the practices of the ONA. The majority of rituals performed by this particular cult were done so inside of stone circles during solstices and equinoxes. The rituals were considered ceremonial by the cult and downright debaucherous by everyone else. Everyone who had at least some sense. The cult's main ritualistic practice was killing, and one of the worst killings took place in 2008, when members of the cult consumed the hearts and tongues of their victims in an effort to become closer to Satan. Luckily, the members of the cult were eventually arrested, but only one member received a sentence of 20 years. The rest served 8 to 10-year sentences or were sent to mental institutions. To make matters even worse, the one member to receive 20 years was pardoned in 2023, which is absolutely insane because due to guidelines, I wasn't even able to tell half of the terrible things this cult did. So just take my word for it, these guys got off way too easy.
And then there's Matamoros, a cult rooted in two main ideologies: human sacrifice and illicit substance dealing. The organization was infiltrated by police in 1989 when authorities found the bodies of 12 men buried on a ranch in Mexico near the US border and 3 more bodies at another location. When members of the Matamoros cult were arrested in relation to the deaths, they claimed that they had not killed anyone, but rather sacrificed many in order to protect their substance smuggling operation. As the police dove further into the Matamoros organization, they realized that it was in fact far more than a substance dealing ring. It was also a satanic cult led by Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo and Sarah Aldrete, who was referred to by many of her disciples as simply the witch. When the pair learned that their organization had been infiltrated by authorities, they fled with a few of their followers. While on the run, Constanzo instructed one of his followers to kill him and then kill himself. When police finally caught up to the group, Constanzo along with one of his disciples were already dead, and Aldrete, aka the witch, was arrested and sentenced to 62 years in prison for her crimes.
I think I will stick to, Easter, Christmas, birthdays, those types of celebrations.
Thanksgiving.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
All right, with all that said, folks, we will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.
Cheers, friends.